So once again, welcome to all the guests, all the staff, all the TTC, and I would like us all to give a warm welcome to Krishna Das. Let's welcome him.
After 13 years, they finally trust me enough to let the teacher trainees come. They don't know. So, welcome everybody. Let's sing a little bit to start. Nothing that you learn from the outside with the intellect is ever going to be enough to save you from life and the difficult stuff that happens in life. There's no question that every one of us must find a way to access our deepest heart. It's not an intellectual knowledge, it's an intuitive understanding, an intuitive realization, which exists within every person, every being in the universe. The only thing that we have to do is look. So, I remember a friend of mine said to me, I just figured out my rest of my life. I know what I'm going to do. I'm taking a teacher training. I'm going to become a yoga teacher. I said, oh really? Yeah, and I'm going to be happy forever. Good luck. At best, what you're learning is a practice that one must do in order for it to bring fruit. The fruit is not going to be a big bank account or a nice yoga studio with nice bamboo polished floors. The fruit is going to be real happiness, which is hard to get. In our culture, in Western culture, nobody's taught how to be happy. We're all taught how to get pleasure and how to try to avoid pain. But none of that has anything to do with happiness, or love, or real joy. So, we're worse than babies. If these babies learn how to get some nourishment, we don't even know how to do that, as far as spiritual things go. So, a certain amount of intellectual knowledge is very useful, no question about it. One must have a basic idea. Well, must is a big word. Sometimes it might help some of us to have a basic idea of where we're headed. But that's only an idea. And when big stormy emotions arise and difficult stuff starts to happen, we have to have real inner strength and understanding to deal with it. So, this practice of chanting is very deep and a very subtle practice, even though it's very simple. Because it allows us to release ourselves from our thoughts, little by little. And when we are released from the tyranny of obsessive thinking, or obsessive identification with our thoughts, we naturally sit more deeply in ourselves. But at first it's very difficult to really get a grip on it. I mean, I assume most of us get some pleasure from chanting. Otherwise, why would we do it? That pleasure is real pleasure because that feeling arises actually not just from the music, but from the repetition of the name. Because these names are not the names of some god up in the sky that we haven't met yet. These names are the names of our own true being, who we really are. And these names that we repeat happen to come from India, but that doesn't mean that India has a monopoly on the names or on God. In different cultures, in different religions, in different practices, there are different names that work just the same. But we're here, and I got my head in India, and so this is what I do. My guru used to say that in Hindi, Ram Nam Karne Se Sab Pura Ho Jata, which means from the repetition of the names of God, everything is brought to fullness, to completion, everything is ripened. And that's all we have to do. We have to keep bringing ourselves into the sun of the inner sun, and this will ripen us and grow us and complete our karmas. It's not, once again, it's not an intellectual process. And in fact, you can't even ever really understand it. That doesn't mean you can't feel it, but you can't understand it, because the understanding only is between a very small wavelength. And what's really happening is a much deeper thing. But you can feel what it feels like to be released from heavy thoughts, negative emotions. Everybody has those things. And everybody knows what it feels like when they're gone. It feels good. But how do they get gone? Do we have anything to say about it? Is there anything we can do? Well, spiritual practice is really the only thing we can do. That doesn't count out taking medication if you need it and those type of things. Anything that gets you through the night is what's best for you. But even within that, even with that, spiritual practice is the only thing that can liberate us from our unhappiness or our incompleteness. It's the only thing that can fulfill our longing. And what are we longing for? Well, because we're born in the West, we long for things that are outside us. We always look for love outside of us. We want somebody to push our buttons and make us feel good. I doubt if that's really love. Or we get a new car, or a new TV, or finally we get cable TV. Now we got 50,000 channels to lose ourselves in. But how do we find something that lasts? Something that we can call our own, something that doesn't go away. Something that can never leave us, which is our own true nature, the love that lives within us. How do we find that? There's only one way, the spiritual practice. And grace, which if you're doing a spiritual practice, you already have. So, we have to develop a kind of inner strength and that can overcome our fear. Our fears of this black hole that if we do the wrong thing or we get into a certain situation, it'll be too much, more than we can deal with. Can't deal with that. Got to go this way. Got to push that away and go for this. So we live our lives kind of navigating a minefield, or an imagined minefield, which becomes very real because of our fear. But how do we get over that? Practice. Spiritual practice. It's the only way. Because spiritual practice trains us to release our thoughts, to release ourselves from our thoughts, to release ourselves from all the different identities that have been adopted by us in this life. And all of those identities are limited, whereas the love inside of us is unlimited. But we have to know what that is. We have to find that. That's what this is all about. This is not a career. It's not a way to make a living. And if it is, as my grandfather used to say, God bless you. Which is his way of saying that. But that's not what I mean. God bless you, because you won't get what you want. What you're really looking for. Everything we grab for, everything we try to get, we're hoping that it's going to give us a particular kind of feeling. We're looking for some feeling in everything we do, in every person we meet. We look in your eyes. Are you in there? I'm in here. Wow, this is great. We're looking for a particular feeling, and that feeling lives within us. You know that in all the books they always talk about the musk deer. The deer that wander around with this scent in their belly buttons, in their navels, that has this musk. And they wander around looking for this scent, where the whole time it's in their own navel. And that's our situation. We wander around looking for that, but it's within us. Maybe a little deeper than the belly button, but it's within us. When we chant, we simply sing, and we let go of our thoughts. And as soon as you notice you're thinking, or your attention is wandering, you come back. The power to pay attention is the one thing that we need in life. Everything else can go. But if we can't pay attention, we have nothing. And attention is very hard to cultivate. It takes time and practice. I've been doing this for 40 years and I still can't pay any attention. Really. At least I notice how little attention I have, which is better than it used to be. But around that, a lot of things have changed. Every day, every minute, life changes around us. How do we find that deep center within that is changeless and always present? It's only through practice and through life. You see, practice isn't you don't do practice and then live. You do practice and live at the same time. We do these practices to give us the strength to become good human beings. A good human being is a caring person, a kind person, a strong person, a compassionate person, a fearless person. That's what these practices will give us. They don't give us a cave in the Himalayas where we think we can, be happy there with nobody around, no TV. Forget about it. You won't be happy. If we go to a cave, we're going to bring all our stuff with us. You can't just go to a cave and say, okay, now I'm meditating. It's not going to happen like that. We're alive, we're living, we have lives, we have relationships, we have all kinds of stuff going on. Within that, we can awaken, we can open within that. And the only way to do that is with the practice. You see why they don't let me talk to people? Any questions? I know you're all scared now. Okay. Let's see, Mike.
Do you have any more stories about the musk deer?
What's that?
Do you have any more stories about the musk deer?
The musk deer? No, that just keeps looking. Till he meets the guru, and the guru says, "Hey, idiot. Here, here, here. Feel it? Smell this? That's you." Oh. Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
I'd like to explain us a little bit about Hanuman just behind you.
Yeah? It's behind me. I can't see him. You tell me. What do you say?
I think you know more than us.
You think what?
I think you know more than me, definitely.
If you think that, that's not good. I don't know any more than anybody.
About Hanuman.
Especially about him.
Thanks a lot.
Well, okay, I'll say a few things about him. My name, Krishna Das, means servant of Krishna. Das means servant. And Das is part of the Hanuman lineage. My guru was a manifestation of Hanuman, an incarnation of Hanuman. So we lived in that storyline, in that milieu, in that atmosphere of service. And Hanuman, when Ram asked Hanuman, how do you see me? He says, well, when I identify with the body, I serve you. But when I know who I am, you and I are one. Now, that's when you can do service. See, these two things exist at the same time. Right now, there's no one here, there's only one of us here. And that one of us is looking out of each one of our eyes. It's the same one looking out of our eyes, right now. Don't think, feel it. The same one, awareness, pure consciousness, is seeing through every eyeball in this room, and hearing through every ear, and feeling through each of our skins. That's the bottom line. That's what Hanuman knows. So when he serves that place in each one of us. That is one. That is not two. That is one. And real service is done when you know that. Because as long... calm down. So he serves out of love, not out of trying to get anything either, by the way. When people came to the temple, Maharaji's temple, he said, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do any seva here. Just whatever you want is going to be given. You should feel like you're in your grandfather's house. And you come and you're completely taken care of. Some places you go, you have to do seva in order to eat. Now, seva is an interesting word. It means service. But if service is for a particular reward, it's hard to call it service. Service should be done Real service is done out of love, out of the compulsion of love, to serve that love in each being. You don't serve the being, you don't serve the person, the ego, you serve God within. This is what Hanuman is, the avatar, the manifestation of pure selfless service. Now, people use a lot of words. A lot of these Indian words, Sanskrit words, are adopted by us. Karma, seva, all these words. Somebody the other day, I guess it was the other day, up in New York, somebody said to me, I do my job as selfless service. And I said, oh, stop. Just stop. You're not doing your job as selfless service. You're doing your job as your job. Selfless service means no self. Is that you? We don't know that. No self, no separate self, no ego. That's selfless service. Everything a human being does has some motive. It has to. Even to stay alive is a motive. There's nothing wrong with it. But let's deal with reality, okay? And not fantasy. Selfless service. One time Maharaji said to one of his great old devotees, who was very learned and a very high yogi, he said, all right, you're supposed to know everything. Tell me, what does Krishna teach in the Gita? Right, so this guy knew that it was a setup, so anything he said he was going to get bopped on the head with. So anyway, he says, well, okay, they say Krishna teaches nishkam karma, selfless service. Right? Maharaji said, ha, you miserable Brahmins, misleading the people. He said, only God can do selfless service. Because only God knows that there's no separate self, that it's all one. So anyone who knows that it's all one, who's experienced that, who knows that they are God, they can do selfless service. The rest of us are just slogging along. So let's keep that clear, because it's not helpful to misuse these words. Because what it does is it cuts off the actual possibility of really understanding what that is. Seva is seva, okay. You do seva because you come here and that's the contract. You're going to do teacher training, you're going to take food here, you're going to get lodging, and in return you do seva. That's good. No, nothing wrong with that. But is it selfless service? Not if you think you're doing it. God doesn't think he's doing, or she doesn't think she's doing anything. There's no thought at all. So to reach that point where there's no thought and no illusion of being separate, we need practice. So Hanuman has no illusions. He's unique in the sense that he keeps the body in order to serve out of compassion, out of love, for the God within us, not necessarily for our egos, but for that God and beauty and love within us. That's what's served, and that's what's serving.
Thank you. Your guru Neem Karoli Baba, can you translate his name to English?
Neem Karoli is the name of a town. The Baba from Neem Karoli. You could be the Baba from Bahamas.
Is it Neem like a neem tree?
No. It's actually Neem Karoli. I don't even know what it means. It's the name of a town. It's a village. And he got his name because he was riding on a train, and back in the days of the English, and when the English owned India, and they used to let the sadhus and yogis ride for free, but they would usually ride in the third-class compartment. So Maharaji was sitting in the first-class compartment with some English person, I think, or an Anglo-Indian person. And they complained to the conductor about this sadhu sitting there. So the conductor comes and says, can I see your ticket? And Maharaji didn't even pay any attention to him at all. He just, can I see your ticket? And when he didn't respond, after a while, he dragged him by the hair out of the train and onto the platform. Maharaji didn't say anything. He just went over and sat underneath a tree just a little distance away. And then everybody got back on the train because everybody had gotten off. This is in the middle of a field in the middle of nowhere. So everybody got back on the train and the conductor says, let's go. And the engineer goes like this and the train doesn't move. And they tell me, I don't know if it's true, but they tell me that the wheels of the train were actually going around, but the train was not moving. The engine was not, the wheels were, but it wasn't moving. So then everybody gets back off the train trying to find out what's wrong, and of course they couldn't find anything wrong. So one of the Indian people who worked on the train as a porter said to this guy, this conductor, who was an Anglo-Indian, which is me, part Indian, part English. He said, you know, Saab, you know, we believe that these Babas have powers, and you offended this Baba, so I think you have to go apologize, or this train is never going to move. So at first he didn't want to do it, you know, but then he said, all right. So he went over, he said, Baba, I'm sorry if I offended you, but you had no ticket. So Maharaji goes like this to his dhoti, and hundreds of tickets fall out all over the place. First class tickets. So the conductor bows down and says, oh, I'm sorry, sir. I had no, you know, Baba, I'm so sorry. So please let the train go. And so Maharaji said, well, these villagers in this area have to walk long distances to bring their food to the market, their produce to the market. So if you promise to build a station here, then I'll let the train go. So the conductor says, I can't promise to build a station, I just work for the railroad, but I'll definitely, I promise I will bring it up and I will try to. So Maharaji said, okay. And got up and walked away and the train took off. That was the village of Nimkaroli. So where he spent many, many, many years in that village, in a cave. He was in a cave for 5 years, and then again, he came out, I forget why, to warn some shopkeeper that his place was going to burn down or something like that. And then he went back into the cave, and then he came out 2 years later. But this is the kind of thing, and you know, it's hard to imagine being in a cave for 5 years or 8 years total. But that's what these great beings do. And what they're doing in those caves, they're not trying to get something. They're rewiring their system to hold what they already have. It's a completely different situation than us. We're trying to kind of get up there, raise ourselves up, and catch a little bit of that hit. But these beings are trying, they're rewiring their bodies and their physical and subtle bodies in order to hold God here for us on the earth. And that's Hanuman too.
Can you describe how you deal with the attachment after Guru left, and how difficult for you guys was to go through this process?
And how, hold it closer to you, how difficult what?
It was to live after Maharaji left, how to deal with this attachment you developed during those few years.
I'm sorry, the last thing you said?
Attachment you developed during last
Hold on,
year.
I don't hear him in here. Sorry, let me just get this together. Go ahead. Okay. It's on.
Okay. So, those years you spent with Maharaji,
Yeah.
you probably kind of developed some kind of attachment, physical attachment to him.
Probably.
So, how difficult was to deal after he left, you know?
Can I ask you why you ask?
Because I'm dealing with...
Point the microphone. It's feeding back from the speaker, so point it towards you.
Okay.
Like that, yeah. Okay. Why do you ask?
Why ask?
Yeah.
Because, you know, I'm dealing with attachment too, so maybe it will help me to understand the process.
Okay. Well, as my grandfather used to say, good luck. yes, my relationship with Maharaji while he was in the body was primarily emotional. I was completely attached to him. When I left America, even before meeting him physically, I had already heard about him from Ram Dass, and I was convinced that I had to go to India and I had to be with him, and had to meet him. So that's what I did. And when I left America, I was never going to come back. And as you could see, Plan 1 didn't work. So it was worse when he died. It was the worst thing that ever happened, the hardest thing that ever happened to me. Ultimately, it actually turned out to be the best thing, in a strange way. But at first, it was unbearable, literally unbearable. And I totally lost it completely. I went into terrible depression and despair, and pretty much decided that life, that I had blown any chance I had to ever be happy, and there was no hope. And I lived that way. And I got into a lot of self-destructive behavior because it didn't make any difference. Nothing was going to work, nothing was going to be enough. It was never going to be okay in my life again. And so I just, in a strange way, I was trying to kill myself in a kind of backhanded kind of way, cowardly kind of way. And it just kept getting worse and worse, really. I mean, try to imagine what it feels like if you have no hope that anything is ever going to be okay again. Anything. That there'll ever be a moment where everything's all right, when anything's all right. And that's the way I lived for a long time. Almost 11 years, actually. So did I deal with it? No, I couldn't deal with it. It was too much for me. Because I was too crippled emotionally in the first place. Being with him was not, that was my spiritual practice, being with him. That was my practice. That's all I wanted to do. That's where I wanted to be. I didn't want to do anything else. I wanted to be with him physically. So when he wasn't there, what you can't replace that kind of love, that kind of attachment, actually. So see, you're probably not as crazy as me. So you might be able to do something about your attachments. Me, I wasn't able at all. And when I went back to India, I went back many times, but at one visit I went back in 1984, Maharaji came back to me and opened me up again. And my life actually began again at that point. Until that point, it was just going down. But then in 1984, I was in the temple, and I'm making a long story very short. If you want to read about it all, it's in the book I wrote in much more detail. But I walked into a room, his room, where he used to sit, and I was literally struck by a lightning bolt right here. And I fell down on the ground, and I was weeping uncontrollably. I could not stop crying. And in that second, when I got hit with that, Shakti means lightning bolt, with that Shakti right here, I saw every moment of my life. From the moment I heard he had left the body until that moment, which was 11 years worth of moments. Every single moment. Boom, 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 boom. And I saw everything I had done in all that time. And I saw why I was seeing it all from a completely clear, calm, open place. I saw everything I had done, everything I had thought, every place I had gone, everything I had said, everything. And I saw why I had done that. And I saw that I had built a wall around my heart. And out of anger and shame and guilt that I didn't go back when he called me, and anger that he left me, and anger at myself, and all kinds of things. I built this wall. And that I would not allow myself to feel anymore that love. I just wasn't going to let that happen. I didn't want to be hurt again by losing him again. So I wasn't going to let myself feel. But then in the next instant, I also saw that, hey, I can take this wall down. I just have to look at this stuff. If I look at this stuff and don't pretend that it doesn't exist, if I just look at it, it will start to go away. If I start to deal with it, it will start to go away. And then I saw that the wall didn't affect him at all. He had never left me for a second in all that time, but that I had left him. So, I guess in some sense I recognized that I could do something about my state of mind. That I wasn't just a victim of external things that happened. That I had something I could do. But until that moment, I didn't know that. But once I knew it, then I came back to the States and started to go to a therapist. Because I had to unwind some of this stuff. I could not, it was all twisted up and tied up. I had to untie some of these knots. And for me, talking about stuff is very useful. So I went to this therapist and I would say these things that I never said, never even imagined to myself that I could ever say, never even admitted to myself that I ever had these feelings. And I would say this and then she would just sit there, mm-hmm. You know, and I would go, she isn't shooting me. She isn't angry at me. She's not judging me. So then I started reaching in that closet, you know, pulling out every piece of shit I could find, throwing it out there. And she just said, mm-hmm. So that was very liberating for me. And this is part of the process that has to happen. We have to kind of open up those closets that we've locked up in our hearts and pull that stuff out and get it out of there, because we're dragging it around with us. And it's funny, when I say closet, do you know what I see in my mind? I see my closet in my bedroom that I was growing up as a kid. That's the closet. It's right over, it's over there, actually. The dark closet where I kept my secret stuff. So, how are we going to ever find happiness if we're dragging this crap around with us? That's a question. The answer is we're not. Period. So, but how do we get the strength to deal with this stuff, to even look at it? Through practice, through a spiritual practice, because the practice brings us deeper into our own hearts and out of identification with the person that feels all that stuff. It brings us deeper into our true being. And then we have a different relationship to that stuff. And then we can look at it, and then we can let it go. And then we could possibly try to understand it a little bit. But the main thing is that the practice changes our relationship to our stuff. Little by little, not like a big explosion. If there's a big explosion, you wind up in a mental hospital. So, you just want little things, little by little, gradually but inevitably. So we all have those kind of experiences in life. And at some point, I think you just get fed up with feeling like shit. And that's enough for it. You know, you wake up, okay, I'm through with this. And time will do that. Time will do it a little bit. But you have to also help. You have to do something to galvanize your own personal will. Because without will, everything that happens to us, all we do is react. And we keep reacting and reacting and reacting and reacting, wave after wave. How do you stop it? It's very difficult. Once I was sitting in the jungle with a very, very old yogi. He was 163 at the time. He's older now. And he looked at me and he just kind of went, Well, a couple of things used to happen. One day he looked at me and he said, you're going to be famous. This was back in the 80s, right? I wasn't doing nothing. If anything, I was doing everything I could to be infamous. So he says, you're going to be famous. So I know these guys can do anything, right? So I looked up at him and I go, and rich. But he just laughed. He leaned over to me, came eye to eye, nose to nose, and he goes, famous. So one day he looked at me and he said, you have to develop Icha Shakti. Icha Shakti means willpower. Icha is will, Shakti is power. You have to develop Icha Shakti. And I thought, willpower? What do I need that for? And he kind of went, because he saw my thoughts, he just kind of went, what kind of an idiot is this guy? And he kind of did something. And then I saw myself through his eyes. For one moment, I saw what he was seeing in me. And it was quite humbling, to say the least. And I saw that I was tripping myself up. I was crippling myself every step of the way. I was not living. I wasn't going after things I wanted. I wasn't engaging with life. I was kind of just wimping through it. From one stupid doofus reaction to another. With no presence at all. I was not paying attention. And life was just going by and I wasn't doing nothing to wake up. I was just flowing along with this flow of unconsciousness. And whoa. Then I understood. Willpower is the power, the director of your will. If you're hungry, you reach out to the refrigerator and open it up and take some food and put it in your mouth. That's will. You want to watch TV, you get the cable thing, click it. That's will. You want to meditate, you sit down and think for 2 hours pretending to meditate. That's no will at all. Will, without a healthy will, without healthy willpower, we're lost. We have plenty of willpower, but we're not directing it ourselves, it's directing us. Every little thing that arises, oh, let's do this, let's do that, okay, blah, 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 blah. We go through life at about like a 0.1 level of will. We just, yeah, we'll do this, I'll go there, I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do that. But we're never really paying attention. So he saw that. And that was a really big moment for me because he showed me myself, that part of myself. And once I saw it, I went, oh shit, I cannot believe this. Because it was really, I had no clue, right? And he showed me. just by showed me what he saw in me, and it was a tremendous blessing. And in some ways it really led to me doing what I'm doing now. It was a beginning, or another step in my getting to a point where I could actually do something to help myself.
You said a couple things about, earlier you said about kirtan and the simplicity of it, and yet it's subtle. And I'm wondering if you could talk more about...
Make it less subtle?
Maybe. I mean, I've had a very strong experience since hearing you last night, and again this morning when we first chanted. Not having seen you before, not having listened much to your...
Yeah.
I know. I'm just letting you know. And it was very much heart-opening. So thank you for that. But I just wonder, yeah, make it less subtle.
Well, experiences come and go. The worst thing you can do is try to hold on to it and hold on to that feeling, because it's in the bank, fine, leave it there. The subtle aspects of chanting, I mean, really, to tell you the truth, I'm really also just a beginner, okay? I have no realization, but I've done this practice a long time, and I kind of seen a little bit how it works. And one of the things that happens is, for instance, I'm a moper. I mope around my whole life. I mope. That's what I do. But a couple of years ago, I just realized that I mope around a lot less than I used to. Now, I don't know how that happened. If I could roll back the clock and get it back, I would. I miss it. You know, it's just so real. You're moping around. Oh, this is yeah. In Sanskrit, it's called kvetching. So, what happens by this practice is, one of the ways that you notice is you actually wind up spending less time in negative, heavy states of mind. But do you notice that? No. Why? Because the you that spent the time there is gone. You don't get to pat yourself on the back. Wow, I'm spending so much less time in negative states of mind. How great I am. That's also a very negative state of mind, even though it feels just wonderful. That's called pride and arrogance, which is bullshit also. So, you wind up spending less time in these heavy states, but you can't explain why. What does it seem to have to do with Sitaram, Sitaram? Nothing. But actually, everything. Because every single repetition of one of these names carries power. Every name, every one repetition. This is Sri Ramakrishna, who was a great saint who lived in the 1800s, explained about chanting. He said, every single repetition of one of these names has extraordinary power. However, that power may or may not be experienced in that moment. He says, chanting the names is like planting seeds. So a seed is planted and it's thrown out into the wind, right? And it gets carried by the wind and it lands on the roof of an old house in the middle of nowhere. And it gets stuck between the tiles on that roof. Okay? The name, the seed of the repetition of the name is carried by the wind and it gets stuck on the tiles of a roof of an old house. Then, with rain and snow and wind and sun and all that stuff, the tiles start to break down, because in India in those days, the tiles they were baked in the sun. They weren't kiln baked. And so they weren't really that hard. So over time, especially poor people's houses, the tiles start to break down. And then the seed can take root. Right? Are you with me? The seed now starts to take root on the roof of this house. And then all those seeds that we planted, they start to take root and they start to grow slowly. They grow, they grow, they grow. And they destroy the roof of the house. And then they keep growing, and they destroy the whole house. Ramakrishna says that house is our sense of being separate from the rest of the universe, our ego, our sense of a separate small s self. So you notice what he doesn't say? He doesn't say your heart opens and you get bliss and you ascend heavenly, bodily to heaven. He doesn't say that, does he? It's not about what I am experiencing right now. It's not about that. It's not about I at all, about me at all. It's about the practice and the results of the practice when you do it correctly, which is to do it and live your life. Yeah, some days will be higher, more up, some days will be lower. You keep the practice going. You keep the repetition of the name going all the time. It doesn't have to be just now. When you're doing your seva, when you're swimming in the ocean, when you're walking on the beach, when you're eating, the name can be going on inside all the time. And every repetition of the name is a seed that gets carried by the wind. And the seed takes root and it destroys the house of our separateness. And what is that separateness? That's what they call ego. That's the fact that we actually believe, everyone in this room probably, and if you don't, see me later, we actually believe that we are who we think we are. And there's nothing more insane than that. Insanity is being stuck in a particular state of mind. That's why they put people away, because they forget to stop at the red light. Why? Because they're everywhere. Okay? They're everywhere, yes, but they're not here. If you could be everywhere and here, then you stop at the red light and go on the green. It's not enough just to be everywhere. You have to be here too. So, our sense of being separate. This is the planet of me. The planet of me. And around that planet orbit all the moons, the many moons of depression and anger and fear and shame and guilt and greed and jealousy and all that stuff. No me, no orbiting moons. But how can you destroy that me? You can't directly. It's like, otherwise it'd be trying like to pick yourself up like this. You get no leverage. There's no leverage. You can't do it. Through practice, we get more leverage on our moment-to-moment situation with our thinking, our thoughts, our emotions, our feelings. We get to a point where they don't run our lives all the time. Wouldn't that be nice? I'd be happy if they didn't run my life 1 minute of the day. 1 minute of the day, I'd be free. Wouldn't that be nice? So from 1 minute, maybe you go to 61 seconds after 10 years. No, just kidding. Don't get depressed. It's just another thought. Real change takes time. And real change happens under the radar. You can't always be like, oh, how's this? How am I doing now? How am I doing now? Oh yeah, this is a great meditation. Yeah, I hardly thought at all. I was thinking all the time. It was fantastic. I really went great meditation. Meditation is very, Maharaji also said that meditation, real meditation, arises naturally and spontaneously when we're ready. Like Jesus said, it's like trying to, what he said about the eye of a camel or the eye of a needle, or a camel through the eye of a needle, right? That's how hard it is to enter real meditation. You can't just do it, because real meditation is our natural state. It's who we are. It's the ego-less state. That's who we really are. But we don't believe that, do we? So, we don't experience it. And even if we believe it intellectually, that's quite a bit different than actually intuitively understanding it. intuitively experiencing. The only way we get that real experience is through practice over time, when you feel like it and when you don't feel like it. That's what builds up that muscle of being able to let go, that letting go muscle. Yeah, in the back.
So you've done chanting for a number of decades now. Is there one chant in particular that really resonates or that you always go back to?
No.
Okay. Zero rotation?
I like them all. They all work. Once I asked Mr. Tiwari, I said, Baba, I said, who's greater, Vishnu or Shiva? He said, my boy, how can you compare infinites? How can you compare infinites, things that are infinite? So, you know, it all, sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't, sometimes you don't. You know that commercial? You don't know that commercial. It has to do with mounds and almond joy. So, almond joy has 2 almonds, but mounds doesn't. It's dark chocolate. Almond joy is milk chocolate. So sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't. Yeah, hi. Hi.
Hi. As a beginner, no knowledge in Sanskrit or the gods, and not a good singing voice either. What's a good way to enter chanting? Can you advise a beginner?
Email people.
I know you're going to say by practice, but I mean, do you recommend studying to know a little bit of the words, or just enter with an open heart and just try to sing along, or
try to learn how to pronounce the words. That's all, and then just sing. Just sing. Don't think about it. That would be the best way.
Don't think about it. And the seeds are going to be planted.
I'm sorry?
The seeds will be planted by the doing.
Yeah, but also don't get stuck thinking like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're not pushing button A to get B to happen.
Yeah, gotcha.
You don't want to be, that just happens to be the way it works. But right now you can feel better, right now, while we chant. Because the more you give yourself to anything, the better you feel in that moment. So the idea is to get to a point where you can give yourself 100% to whatever you're doing. Chanting is one way of developing that ability, the best way that I know of developing that ability. Because when you can be completely, wholeheartedly one-pointed, you see God. Being God takes a little bit more work, but seeing God, I'll settle for that at first.
You're saying that it helps to focus your concentration on that connection.
Yeah. Focus on the sound of the name, not the meaning, not what's going to happen if you do this, not what you want to happen, not what you don't know, just the sound of the name. That's all. And when I sing, you listen. When you sing, hear yourself. Stay in that place of receptivity, of paying attention, of being here. That's all. Don't add anything on. You don't have to understand anything. I don't. And look at me, I'm famous. Maybe if I understood things, I'd be rich too. I better go back and study. So seriously, you don't add anything on to yourself, okay? Don't add anything on to yourself. Be as you are. Do this practice just as you are. But get familiar with the sounds that you're singing. It's not a musical practice. You don't have to sing in key. That's
what I love about it.
Yeah, me too. Except unless you're sitting too close to me. So don't add anything on. Just simply be with the sound, okay? And you'll find wonderful things. You'll start to feel things inside. Just from simply being with the sound of the name. And when you walk out of here, that sound can still be going on in your head if you listen. Stay with it. You don't have to make any show of it, you know. Eat your food, go swim, go walk. The name is going on somewhere all the time. Be with it. That's all. Just be with it. The only reason we sing it out loud is because it's harder to do it silently. So we start out loud. That helps you, that helps me, that helps us each concentrate more, pay attention more. We hear it at the same time. That helps us pay attention. But eventually, it goes deeper and deeper, and there's no need to say it out loud. Maharaji was always lost, immersed in the name, but he never had to be singing it or anything like that. It was just going on all the time inside. That connection to that place where it comes from. Okay? Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
I wanted to ask you about faith. Because you
Faith, hope, and charity, that's
when
the
you
way.
were, when Neem Karoli Baba passed, you said it was the darkest, that dark period of 11 years. Were you practicing during that time? Were you chanting?
Not much, no.
And it seemed like, the Guru's grace is what pulled you out of that dark period.
Mhm.
And my question about faith is, since that was the darkest time in your life, was there another time that was equally as dark and the Guru's grace wasn't there, but the practice pulled you out?
Guru's grace is always here. Guru is not something outside that either gives grace or doesn't give grace. Grace, Guru, God, Self are who we are. They're one thing. Can you ever be anywhere else? Anywhere where yourself isn't?
Or I mean that you weren't aware, that you weren't like
I'm never aware.
that you just started practicing because you said the Guru's grace it gave you the Shakti and so that awakened you, but was there time, because we're here to practice,
Mhm.
was there time the practice itself, just the repetition of the names, was Shakti enough to...
Last night. Really? Sometimes life goes on, my friends. You don't always get the luxury of feeling nice and happy and good when you have to do something. Sometimes you feel like shit. Last night I felt like shit. And I had to come out here and sing. And by the end, I felt fantastic. Because I did the practice as best I could, 100%. I gave myself as best I could, and it works. What can I say? It changed my perspective. It changed the way I felt about what was going on within me. It changed everything. Except the details, the external details of what's going on may still be going on, but I have a different relationship to it right now. And instead of being a cloud that's raining on me, I'm sitting on the cloud. It's a whole different thing. Every time I sit down, it's a moment like that. Whatever I'm stuck in, whatever I'm thinking, even if I'm just sleepy and not paying, just kind of dull, it changes everything, right? As much as you give to the practice, that's how much you'll get back. So we have to develop the ability to more and more really do the practice. That doesn't include thinking about it and evaluating it as it's happening. You just do it. Let go. Oh, I'm thinking about that. Okay, round, round, up, round, round, up, round, round. You don't realize, if you actually pay attention to what's going on, you'll see you can hardly get through one round actually paying attention before the mind wants to go somewhere else. So you just come back. In fact, by the time you notice that you're not paying attention, you're already back, right? At that moment, you re-enter powerfully into the practice again. Because you recognize that you've just been lost in thought for 20 minutes while you've been singing, while everybody in the room's been singing. You might have even been clapping and dancing, but you haven't been paying any attention. And all of a sudden you go, that moment, you're already back. Now, get back into the pay attention again. And just keep paying attention until you notice that you're not paying attention. So this is a living practice for me. This isn't something this is not my career. This is my life. This is what I do. I do this to save my own yogic butt. And it works. It doesn't change it. It doesn't get rid of the problems, but it changes the way I go through them. And, maybe it doesn't, maybe every time I sit down, it's not like magic. because I haven't been able to really pay attention. It's been too big of an issue. Something really hard has happened and I can't pay attention. But even under those circumstances, just to do the practice, it's helpful. But it may not be, like taking a Valium. But if you need a Valium, take it. And then sing. Seriously. Sometimes you need some help to get through the night. There's nothing wrong with that. Whatever you need to get through the night, you do. But medication is not the end-all and be-all, but it can be helpful. I've taken medication for depression at times. Not for a while, but I just lost the script. So you do what you have to do. And you keep moving. And you don't judge yourself. Oh, there's something wrong with me. That's already been done to us. Why should we do it to ourselves? Again and again and again. We have to learn how to give ourselves a break. That's the hardest thing to do. I throw it in the ocean. Right now, I throw it in the ocean for a hammer. You want to sing? Yes. That's what the question was in there. Okay. Okay. See you later. So, every temple that Maharaji had, whenever he was there, sometimes when he wasn't there, he had these kirtanwalas from Vrindavan, Bengali kirtanwalas, Vaishnavas. And they would sing Hare Krishna around the clock, pretty much all day and most of the night. And we used to sing with them when he wasn't out giving darshan, when we couldn't see him. The rest of the time we just hung out with them and sang. What we're singing in India they call the names of God. The divine name. Maharaji used to say, in Hindi, he used to say, Ram Naam Karne se sab pura ho jata hai. Samajh gaya? From going on repeating these names, everything is accomplished. Everything is brought to fullness and completion. He said it. Now, if I only really believed it, what else would I be doing except singing all the time? No TV, no nothing. But we're doing the best we can. And in fact, the practice of the repetition of the name purifies our hearts and opens our hearts and cleans out a lot of the dark shadows in our own mind and heart. When I started singing with people, it was because I understood that if I did not sing with people, I was never going to clean out these dark shadows, these dark corners in my own heart. And I understood that it was only that stuff that was causing me suffering, that was making me unhappy. So, all I can tell you is after all these years of chanting, I mope around less than I used to. I don't know how much less, but definitely less. Sometimes I mope around just for fun. It's such a innate part of me, that I miss it. I ain't kidding. So back in the spring of 1972, Maharaji had a new temple built inside the ashram, inside the temple, to the goddess Durga. And after the temple was completed, they brought in a priest, a pujari, to do the worship every day. And everything was okay for a while, but after a few days, they caught him stealing the money out of the donation box in front of the temple. Big wooden box chained to the ground so nobody could run away with it. And it had a tiny little slit in the top. And you put the rupee notes or some coins down there, right? So they sent this guy home and they brought in a second priest. And after a couple of days, they caught him stealing. And it's not easy. You have to have a special tool made that goes down into this box and can grab those rupee notes and flip them right out of there. It takes a lot of practice. Must be part of the priestly training. So anyway, they sent the second guy home and they brought in a third priest, and after a few days they caught him stealing. So they sent him home, and the guys that ran the temple, the trust, they came to Maharaji and they said, Baba, we can't find a priest that won't steal. What are we going to do? So Maharaji goes, my priest won't steal. Your priest? Who's that? Krishna Das. So I was summoned from the back of the temple, where the Westerners spent most of their time, banished to inner darkness. And I was asked to sit there and be the pujari, the priest. So I sat there all day, and I figured, I ought to learn some mantras. That's what priests do, and they're not stealing. So I learned a few mantras and I'm going to sing them for you now. And we're going to sing something. And the reason I told you this long story is because I do sincerely want you to understand I am qualified for this. Hey Ma Durga, hey Ma Durga, hey Ma Durga, hey Ma Durga, hey Ma Durga. Hey Ma Durga, hey Ma Durga, hey Ma Durga, hey Ma Durga. Chandikaya, Om Namah 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 Chandikaya. Chanting Mangala Kali, Bhadrakali, Kapalini, Durga Kshama, Shiva Dhatri, Swaha, Swadha, Namostute, Narayani, Namostute, Narayani, Namostute.
Siddhi Buddhi Pradedeve Bhukti Mukti Pradayani Mantramurte Mahadevi Mahalakshmi Namostute Narayani Namostute Narayani Namostute Sharanagata dinartha Paritrana Narayani Sarvasyati Hare Devi Durge Devi Namostute Narayani Namostute Narayani Namostute Sarvabadha vinirmukto Dhanadhanya Siddhanato Anusyo Matprasadeno Bhavishyati Sanshara Narayani Namostute Narayani Namostute Gari Jai Shama Gari Om Shri Matre Namah Om Shri Matre Jai Jagarambe Jai Jai Jagarambe Ema Durga Ema Durga Durga